Hey, it's Christine Grace. Welcome back to my channel. Today is another reaction video. Like the video on your way in, let's get straight into it. So, as per many requests, I know you guys absolutely love the reactions to the Shoe on Head videos. I am a big fan of the Shoe on Head channel now, thanks to reacting to so much of her content. So she's just released another video. Let's check it out together.
Hello again, friends. Sorry I've been gone for quite a bit. Hopefully nothing too crazy happened. I feel like every time I take a break, like, a war breaks out or something, but thankfully that did not happen. But at least we found out the real Epstein files were the friends we made along the way. Welcome back to the Shoe on Head channel. If it is your first time here, run. I am Shoe on Head, and on this channel I like to cover cultural issues mostly surrounding men's issues. It's what I've been doing for over a decade, and frankly, I'm exhausted. Many of you have been along for the ride, and you have seen me go from a chipper, lively 24-year-old making fun of BuzzFeed and Tumblr feminists to a bit—
Wow. Okay, now I have an idea of how old she is.
bitter, calloused 34-year-old talking about very real and growing men's issues. One of the main men's issues I have been covering in great detail lately has been the male loneliness epidemic. Yeah, but turns out I was wrong. We don't have a male loneliness epidemic. We have a male loser epidemic. It's not a male loneliness epidemic. No, it's a male mediocrity epidemic. It's a male loser epidemic.
The male loser epidemic
Well, thanks for telling all of us. Thank you.
has gotten so bad that it's honestly so pathetic at this point.
With all these issues men are facing, they seem to be moving to the right and the Republicans more, since the left and Democrats have essentially just become the young men eat and die movement. Months ago, I covered how the Democratic Party was losing young men, and I predicted Kamala Harris would lose in part because of young men overwhelmingly voting for Trump. And I was correct. Well, now the Democrats have unveiled their final solution to the right-wing male loser epidemic. Democrats spending millions to learn how to speak to American men and win back the working class. Democrats have blown millions of dollars on efforts to appeal to American men who turned to President Donald Trump in droves on Election Day in hopes of winning back the working class. Democrats have spent $20 million on their efforts, with donors and strategists holing up in luxury hotel rooms, brainstorming how to convince working class men to return to the party. Ah yes, nothing more relatable to working class men than luxury hotel rooms. Great job, guys. The plan? Codename SAM, or Speaking with American Men, a strategic plan, promises to use the funds to study the syntax, language, and content that gains attention and virality in these spaces.
So essentially, all I'm hearing is that they are going to mimic the kind of content that gets attention and virality within men's spaces, mimic it and then infiltrate it. So it's essentially like fake news, but targeted towards men. That would be interesting to see how that works.
The effort also recommends Democrats buy advertisement in video games, among other things. The Democratic Party is treating young men—
Yeah, you're just gonna piss them off. That's not— imagine you're a dude and you're just that— I'm saying imagine you're a dude, like most of you watching aren't dudes, but I can imagine for you guys, like, I don't play video games, but if I was a guy and I'm sat there playing a video game and then all of a sudden I'm getting some political agenda plastered in my face, that would turn me off. That would like push me in the complete opposite direction instead of the direction in which the ad wants me to go, because what are you doing interrupting my video game? Am I right? Is that fair?
Men, like exotic animals they're studying. Now, as you can see here is the young man in his natural habitat, in a dark, messy cave surrounded by Taco Bell wrappers and empty Mountain Dew bottles. Here is another young man, as you can see, also dwelling in a dark cave. This one has dyed his hair blue to scare off potential predators. Unfortunately, it also scares off potential mates, but moving on, here is another young man, we think. We're not quite sure about this one. We're still studying it. Listen, Democrats, instead of spending $20 million to do that stupid maybe you should, I don't know, actually listen to men. I listen to men for free all the time. All I have to do is read my comment section. Let's see here. Shoe on Head is a perfect example of why we need to repeal the 19th. Greetings from Albania. I hate women so much it's unreal. Ooh, shoo, mommy, milkies, 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 mommy, mommy, mommy. One time I got my penis stuck in a soda bottle. Oh.
What the frick? What the frick? Oh, I'm always flabbergasted by the short-haired comment section.
Okay, on second thought, maybe my comment section is not the best source.
Maybe not.
Since Trump scored big with young male voters last election, Democrats are spending $20 million to learn how to speak their language.
That's a bit crazy. I mean, I think the issue here is that the Democrats trying to speak to young men and actually listening to young men would basically turn the Democrats into Republicans in the current political climate. That's how I see it. Now, I can only speak for my 24 years here on the planet, 25 soon. Almost a quarter of a century, my gosh. Anyway, existential crisis over. I think that the political parties at the moment, I think the Democrats are a women's party, and I think that the Republicans are a men's party. I don't know what it's like in the States. I know that, race and stuff is a huge thing over there, but I personally believe the biggest divide, the biggest division amongst the Western population right now is that of a gender divide. It's a sexual divide. It's a divide between the sexes, and I think that has translated into politics. I think all of politics is now very much catered towards women because women have so much power in today's society, but ultimately, if it comes down to it, I think the Republicans probably represent as much as they can men, and Democrats obviously, I think, represent women. I don't think any party out there is actually willing to really fight for men's issues because I don't think anyone actually has the balls, ironically, to do it. But that's just what I think.
I think it's a waste of money. Maybe these guys should spend their money on teaching men to not be such sexists.
And there it is. And that is why the world is the mess that it is, because women have this fundamental problem with men. I've gotten to a point now where it's just beyond me at this point. I don't know how it gets to that point. I don't know how it's been allowed to get to that point. I don't know how women have been allowed to behave in such a way for so long. I think it's partly men's fault in that it's the men that initially let it happen. It's it's the men that didn't stand up for themselves and put their foot down when their wife started talking in a way that was kind of down to them and losing respect and stuff like that. Now, women shouldn't be disrespecting men in the first place. The accountability is on the women. But men have the power, or they did have the power, to be able to stop things from getting out of hand in the most important place, which is the home. And you just know for a fact that this woman, if she's married, she talks to her husband like this as well. And I just think that men have now been infantilized for decades, and I don't know to what end. Like, when is it anything going to change? I don't understand how women can genuinely think that they can change something so concrete, such as masculinity. You either work with it or leave it alone. And I can't fathom how women can simply think that that's the answer. Oh, we'll progress without men. Because that's what they want, right? That's what they seem to say that they want. But then at the same time, they're all crying that they're single. Or sorry, no, they are projecting on social media that they're definitely fine and they're definitely happy about the fact that they're single. But the truth is, if you were actually that happy, you wouldn't feel a need to talk about it on social media.
But the stats don't bear that out now. Look at what young women have to choose from. The pickings are slim. Yes, we might have a feminism problem in America, but it's the feminization of men. There are a lot of young women out there that want to get married. They want to have kids. They want to have stable families. But there are a lot of young men out there who want to live in mama's basement and order DoorDash.
Oh no. The very night I was sitting on my couch writing the script to my video about how the Democrats are spending $20 million to relate to young men, this came on my TV on Fox News. A Tommy Lahren and Laura Ingraham segment about stay-at-home sons, men who still live at home. Literally minutes after this aired, it went absolutely viral on Twitter for not good reasons. So we are going to unpack this piece by piece. Because even though everyone was mocking it and making fun of it, as far as I saw, nobody was really dissecting it and breaking down exactly why she was so egregiously wrong. So come join me in debunking the male loser epidemic. Because who else better equipped to talk about men's issues than two stupid blonde bimbos? Hold on one second. 3 stupid blonde bimbos. Sorry. I felt left out. Alright, let's go. Wait. I need my gamer fuel.
No.
See?
Shoo, please. Don't destroy your insides. I say this from a place of experience. When I was in school, I used to hate waking up, as I'm sure many of you used to as well. I would be 13, and before I would get on the bus for school, I would stop at we call them news agents. It just means like a convenience store, I guess, in America. And I would get a Monster. First thing in the morning. I did that for like 3 years until I got a stomach ulcer and I was woken up in the middle of the night in immense pain and holding my stomach and crying and having to get driven to the hospital by my dad because I had eroded the inner lining of my stomach. So, yeah, just drink with caution.
I do drink it. That one's for you, Tectone.
It's a major problem. And, you know, Speaker Johnson has been talking about those maybe deadbeat folks that are on Medicaid, and maybe some of those folks are the stay-at-home sons. We don't know. But I'll tell you this, leave it to Gen Z to rebrand laziness and social awkwardness as something cutesy, like a stay-at-home son. But Laura, I gotta tell you, this is also a big problem when it comes to, I think, declining birth rates, people not getting married and having children. You know, that's a big problem. They blame it on women. Well, look at what young women have to choose from. The pickings are slim. Yes, we might have a feminism problem in America, but it's the feminization of men. There are a lot of young women out there that want to get married. They want to have kids. They want to have stable families. But there are...
So what she's saying, she's got it all wrong in her lens, but what she's saying as a statement in a vacuum is true. There is a feminization of men. Testosterone levels in men have drastically decreased since, I believe it was the 50s or 60s. If you look at the average testosterone of a guy today, they are averaging out at the same testosterone as what an 80-year-old would have had in like the 60s or 70s. So men are becoming feminized. You've also got to look at, you know, I'm going to bring up an old Debunking the Lunacy video here, but, you know, just look at the chemicals that they're putting in the water.
Yeah, there it is, the gay bomb. Look it up for yourself. I mean, this is what do you think tap water is? It's a gay bomb, baby. And I'm not saying people didn't naturally have homosexual feelings. I'm not even getting into it, quite frankly. I mean, give me a break. You think I am like, shocked by it, so I'm up here bashing it because I don't like gay people? I don't like them putting chemicals in the water that turn the friggin' frogs gay.
So, yeah, she's not wrong. Men are becoming feminized for a plethora of reasons that doesn't just hold feminism in the center. So she's not wrong. However, to then take that and use that as a reason to completely, it seems, minimize the effects of feminism and minimize the attitudes of women such as herself is completely looking at it through the wrong lens. She's not wrong. There is a problem with men becoming more feminine. But I would argue that that's not men's fault. Like, what are guys supposed to do? Not drink water? You know? So men can only do as much as the cards that they're dealt with. Whereas women have this position where we're born on a pedestal and society is completely tailored towards us. So we're actually the ones in a position of power who can do something about it, who can do something to shift the gender dynamic. We can do something to rejoin forces with men. We can hold out a hand and say, hey, we want to build bridges, not burn them down. But yet we have been given the biggest jump start and we're already 10 miles down the line, and then we're turning back and saying to the men, come on, hurry up, you should already be here by now, after we've already had a head start. That's where it stops making sense. It's the ignorance and it's the lack of accountability and just lack of self-awareness where it stops making sense. She's not wrong that there is a feminization problem amongst men, and that has been going on for decades. However, the lens that she's looking at it from and just the complete ignorance about it, that's where I would say she's completely wrong.
There are a lot of young men out there who want to live in mama's basement and order DoorDash, and that's why we have declining birth rates and a lot of other problems in society. It's time to go out, get a job, breathe the fresh air, meet people in real life. Let's just get back to basics.
So first of all, this stay-at-home son thing is not a real thing. It was a random throwaway, self-deprecating joke some contestant on Jeopardy said. One guy, because I guess there's nothing else important going on that they could cover on the news. They literally made this into a fake phenomena so they can on young men. Meanwhile, Democrats are spending millions of dollars trying to win back young men. Oh no, the young men are leaving us in droves. How do we get them back? Don't worry, I got this. Hey, you fat, lazy, Cheeto dust-covered slobs, f*** you. Nice. Thanks. I love you. I love you too. Is the amount of young men living home with their parents increasing? Yes. Is it because they're lazy bums and just want to order DoorDash all day? No. And also,
no, it's because they're not given opportunities, because there's nowhere for men to fit into society anymore, because we've shipped all hard labor work, at least here in the UK, overseas. There is nowhere for men to do manly things anymore. Things like apprenticeships here in the UK have drastically decreased over the last few decades. Men, are more fatherless than ever before. There is a lack of male role models. So, no, it's not true. And yes, it's completely unfair and unfounded.
So they're not paying for DoorDash, Tommy. They're financing it. Come on. Get with the times.
There are a lot of young men out there who want to live in mama's basement and order DoorDash, and that's why we have declining birth rates. It's time to go out, get a job, breathe the fresh air.
Have either of you tried applying for a job as a young man recently? Or tried buying a house on the salary of one of these young men? Have you experienced the dating market, been on the dating sites as a young man? No? Interesting, okay.
I've just realised she's still wearing the blonde wig. This is brilliant.
Just wondering. Listen, I know the average age of a Fox News viewer is like 70 nowadays and you need to pander to them, but Tommy, you are like 2 years younger than me. You know this shit isn't
Oh my gosh. Shu looks young. I need your secret. Please.
true. Why are you talking like this? Why are you talking like a f***ing boomer? I'm sorry, I have no other word for this, but I hate this like generational pick-me shit. I was born in the wrong generation. I'm not like those other young people. And you know what? She's not like those other young people. Not all young people can afford a nice nose job and lip filler and get a cushy job on Fox News based entirely on merit, I'm sure. The main problem with
Shit's getting real.
this brain-dead boomer-ass take is not only is it cringe, but it's completely divorced from reality. This slop is specifically designed for people who paid like $5 for a f***ing house.
Yeah.
And listen, not all boomers, okay? My parents are boomers, they are lovely people. A lot of you guys are boomers, but when the baby boomer generation sends its people, it is not sending their best. They are not sending you. They're sending people who have lots of problems. They're bringing the housing crisis. They're bringing wage stagnation. They're falling for AI-generated photos on Facebook. But some, I assume, are good people. But my god, I truly believe they do not understand how good they had it. They could support a family on a single income.
She's right. Like, a lot of them don't get it, and there is a lot of pressure from the baby boomer generation to younger generations, like, you know, just pull your socks up and get on with it. Like Shu, I'm quite lucky that my parents are very similar. They understand that they had it completely different and that life was just a lot easier. I was actually having this conversation today with a friend about that generation and how I would argue they had it the best, even though technologically you could argue that we're better off in terms of individual happiness and being able to achieve things, and the fact that everything post-war was just on the up. The baby boomer generation, in my opinion, definitely had it the easiest. They had the best times. But yeah, I kind of lost that debate, but still.
Single income from a job that didn't require a college degree. Their leaders didn't prostitute away their economic future for some cheap plastic shit from China. They inherited the greatest economy known to man, and they pretend it's a paradise that they earned. I just don't understand, like, why don't boomers and spiritual boomers like Tommy Lauren see people struggling and go, wow, I wish I could fix this. They should have it better than I had it. And you wonder why so many millennials and zoomers don't want kids.
See, I understand what she's saying, and I definitely don't agree with the finger pointing and the blaming that people like Tommy Lauren and the boomer generation perhaps are doing. However, I wouldn't say I'm completely in agreement with Shu on, well, we should help everyone and we should help everyone and all of this. I think times change, and I don't think you're ever going to go back to what was before. And I don't think Shu is suggesting that. But the point that I'm trying to get at is that times do change and times are a lot harder now. And unfortunately, we do just have to get on with it. And I think in terms of the economy and stuff like that, I don't know anything about that, so I'm not gonna be able to propose a way to change that. And if someone much smarter than me can propose a way to change that, then great, let's find a way for this economic paradise that was once here to make its return. However, I think, back then people would get married and they would buy these houses together, and typically the man was able to do that. Now we're in a female economy. Females are out earning men, I think, on average between the ages of 20-30 by about 10%. There are more women in higher education than there are men, so it's like nothing's changed in terms of women still want men to be the providers, even after claiming that they don't because of feminism, but yet women are the ones who can provide. So this is where I'm saying women have the leverage, women have the pedestal. Women are the ones in the positions of power who can be holding out the hand and saying, hey, do you know what? I understand that times have changed and now I am the one who makes more money. So, use that. But instead, no, they want to say, I want a man who earns just as much or more than me. If women were to actually get with men who are actually on their level, not in terms of how much they earn, but, in terms of, say, social status and looks and all that other stuff, there's ways to tackle this. There's things that women can be doing to bridge the gap between men and women. But the problem is that no one wants to actually bridge the gap. No one actually wants to do anything about it. People just want to keep pointing fingers and blaming each other and saying, oh, it's the men's fault, it's the women's fault. When, look, times are crap right now. Women do work and women often earn more than men. So it's like, that doesn't mean that relationships then have to fall apart. It just means that the dynamic in relationships, if this is the kind of life that you want, have to change. So it's like, I'm very much a believer of, you move with the cards that you're dealt with. And unfortunately, in 2025, this is the cards that we're dealt with. This is the way that society works. We can talk for hours about, how I think it should be and how I believe we've gone wrong. But the reality is that we're here now and this is what's what. So it's how do we move forward with the cards that we have?
I want to make the world a better place for my children. I want to make the world a better place for my children. Ugh. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you spoiled brat. Children. Not happening.
Well, look at what young women have to choose from. The pickings are slim. Yes, we might have a feminism problem in America, but it's the feminization of men.
Young men are becoming lazy because they're becoming feminized. So they're becoming lazy because they act more like women? What did she mean by this, chat? I know there's like a decrease in testosterone or something happening, but men are moving right-wing all over the world. Does that correlate with the feminization? Or, there are suspiciously a lot of far-right femboys, so maybe. But here's the thing, Tammy. There is absolutely no evidence that young women want to start families more than young men. None. In fact, all the data
That's a great point.
Says the exact f***ing opposite. According to Pew Research, 64% of women younger than 50 say they just don't want to have children.
Oh my goodness gracious me. That is a lot higher than the last time I read any data like this. Obviously, this depends on where this is from. We're probably reading. It's probably different here in the UK. 64% of women younger than 50 say they just don't want to have children. and 50% of men. That is terrifying. That is really terrifying.
No reason, they just don't want them. Versus 50% of men who say the same. Another study by Archbridge Institute shows the same. 63% of women without children said they have no desire to have a child, while only 50% of men said the same. For men, the most commonly cited factor was personal finance, but among women, the strongest reason not to have a child was their desire to maintain their personal independence. Basically, they don't want to give up their brunch and mimosas. They've been ass-blasted with propaganda their whole lives, telling them their lives will be ruined, their bodies will be ruined, they'll never have fun again, they'll be miserable forever if they have children. And as someone who has had a children, best decision I've ever made. 10/10, highly recommend, would do it again. But yes, this idea that men are the...
Oh, that's so funny. It's like in that other video where she's like, I am a woman. A woman. My mom is a woman.
ones primarily responsible for the low birth rates is laughable. We're laughing over here. But honestly, it's not really women or men's fault. There are a lot of factors that play into this. But Tommy, I really gotta ask, is it men or is it you?
This is going to be the summer of canceling boys. All of my friends are attractive. All of my friends are successful.
She's like a slightly older Emily Saves America, isn't she?
All of my friends have something going on. Almost every single one of them have an issue with men. But if all of these women, including myself, are having issues, then I have to think, it might not be us. It might be you. It is not just the guys in Los Angeles, Nashville, Dallas.
So hang on a minute. You and your friends all have an issue with men. You're all thinking about the fact that you have an issue with men. So your conclusion is, it's the men. How does that make any freaking sense? You're the one with the issue. You're literally outwardly saying, we have an issue. So you have an issue.
And they're not any better in the Midwest. Quite frankly, I think they're trash all over this country.
My friends are successful. Men don't give a shit about that.
That's not a good look, is it?
They'd marry a Walmart cashier if she was nice to them.
I think men between the ages of 20 and 30 are not ready, in most cases, for marriage. Are usually not ready to
So marry a guy older than 30.
be husbands and fathers.
That's a cultural issue. So, look,
No, I would actually, back to your point, I think it's a biological thing.
So let me get this straight. Men are all trash and won't commit and won't leave mommy's basement, and they're destroying the birth rates. But also young men are biologically incapable of commitment and being parents. What? But wait, there's more! She also believes women don't have to bring anything to the table.
And as a woman, I want a strong man who is a
Oh, this was interesting, wasn't it?
protector and a provider that will go to war if need be, that will protect me, protect my family, make money. But I don't think a man needs to get something out of it to be a manly man, a protector and a provider. If you think you need to get something out of it, I quite frankly don't consider you a real man.
Never before in history have women demanded so much and offered so little. So before we get deeper into this retarded, manufactured, stay-at-home son narrative, let's check the Facebook comments of this Fox News video, because I am really interested to see what, the typical Fox News viewer thinks about this. If the women are anything like these two, I can hardly blame the men for staying home and not wanting to date them. Blame, blame, blame. These two women have a combined age of 93, and they have 0 children between both of them.
Tommy Lauren doesn't have children. Isn't she old?
You both have repugnant personality types, so listening to this was like male birth control to me. My goodness! Boomers are ruthless! Bunch of sissies. I served 6 years, 2 years in Southeast Asia after Vietnam was over. When I was 18, rent was $450 and I could afford to get my own place. She's so spot on. Nothing screams I'm a loser run from me than a guy living at home in his parents' house with his 12-year-old boy's bedroom decor at age of 30. Thank God we raised our sons to be men, who grew up, lived on their own, found their soulmate, got married, bought a beautiful home, and started a family. I was out the door at 18, worked on the assembly line at Dodge and in the Air Force at 19, never went back home. I can't relate to this. Yes, we know you people can't relate. We know. But the world has changed. Why can't you people get this through your heads? I will never let my sons stay home. I'm trying to push them out of the nest. Okay, I really gotta ask, is this an Anglo thing? Immediately kicking your kid out when they turn 18 years old?
Yeah, it is.
My Mediterranean mind cannot comprehend this. And honestly, why the f*** would a man leave home, leave his mother's cooking, for a woman who probably can't cook? Not me though. Personally, I can cook amazing homemade meals. I'll have you know I am a great trad wife.
Bone apple teeth.
Now, unfortunately, Tommy Lauren wasn't the only one pushing this stupid, lazy young men go get a job bullshit. Mike Johnson did it, referencing 29-year-old men playing video games all day. Steve Scalise did it with 35-year-old men playing video games all day. And just the other night, I saw this on my TV. Again.
A Wall Street Journal headline got our attention. The new dream job for young men, stay-at-home son.
Oh my gosh, they're really running with it, aren't they?
It's a phrase that's taken off since 27-year-old Brendan Leo won $59,000 on Jeopardy. And he has a master's degree in political science, but he's unemployed. Grow up, get a job, get a wife, build a family.
Just get a wife, bro. Just get a job, bro.
Oh, get a job? Yeah. Just get a job? All right. Strap on my job helmet and squeeze down into a job cannon and fire off into jobland where jobs grow on jobbies.
The term welfare queen must have fell out of fashion with Republicans, because it seems even they know the approved safe demographic to go after now. Because it's very obvious what demographic they are talking about when they say young men in their basements playing video games. This just get a job lazy attitude is not surprising, but it's especially funny coming from Fox News of all places. Fox News that spends so much time yapping about immigrants taking American jobs. Fox News will talk for years about how Americans are being screwed out of the workforce. But when this issue manifests itself in Gen Z, suddenly it's a moral failure. The fact is, a lot of American jobs held by men are being lost to automation, offshoring, and yes, cheap foreign labor. Companies and billionaires would rather have cheap labor that they can essentially abuse, not pay fair wages to, just good little worker drones who won't unionize, rather than hire American workers for a living wage. The cheaper the labor they hire, the more money they make. I remember when Bernie Sanders called open borders a Koch brothers conspiracy.
Open borders? That's a Koch brothers proposal, which says essentially there is no United States.
But it would make a lot of global poor richer, wouldn't it?
And it'd make everybody in America poor. Then you're doing away with the concept of a nation state.
Where'd that guy go? A lot of these jobs being taken are jobs traditionally held by men, like construction and factory jobs, manual labor work. But it's not just manual labor jobs, it's also the tech industry and business industry, which are careers also mainly held by men. There are many examples of this, such as Microsoft recently cutting thousands of American workers while requesting 14,000 more H-1B workers this year. Some of those job positions include data scientists, which are 70% men, software developers, which are 80% men, and electronic engineers, which are 90% men, and many more like that. Another example of this was Tesla, where roughly 15,000 American employees were fired in April 2024, and many were replaced with H-1B visa holders. On Twitter, Elon...
See, you have to dissect this as well, which I'm sure she's going to do, but, you know, there's so much going on in my brain right now. So... I'm all for capitalism, right? So I'm now thinking in the minds of people like Elon Musk and these billionaires. Obviously, you want to pay people less. You know, it's a business expense. Of course, you want someone who's going to do the job the best for a start and also the cheapest. Like, it just makes sense. If you're any kind of self-aware human being, you can't tell me that if you're thinking in purely a business mind, that if you have the option to pick between someone who's going to do the job exceptionally well, isn't really going to, you know, form a union against you and is going to do it for less money, versus someone who will do the job well enough but might form a union against you and will definitely want double the pay of the other guy, which one are you going to pick? If you're not a self-righteous individual and you have the ability to think objectively, it's pretty clear that you would pick the first one. If you're thinking in a business mind, I'm sorry, that's just the most logical option. Now, if you dissect this a bit further and you think, okay, so what's the problem here? All right, billionaires are picking the wrong people, or billionaires aren't picking, you know, the people from the country or whatever. But realistically, I would argue it's an educational problem. Look at the kids today in school versus the rest of the world in America and in the UK. Kids aren't smart anymore. If you look at the majority of British and American people and you look at these, you know, very high intellectual jobs, why is it that foreigners are doing them? Because the foreigners are working harder to get there. The foreigners are the ones that are putting in the work. Now, is this a problem of the individuals? No, that's not what I'm saying. We have to dissect it a bit further. This is an institutional problem. And it is a cultural problem as well. We don't have people that want to fight as hard for these jobs. So unfortunately, if someone is going to come over from overseas, they're going to do the job a lot better because they've fought much harder to do it, and they're going to do it for cheaper, then of course the job is going to go to them. I'm sorry, but this is just the logical way of things. How do we fix that? Well, unfortunately, like I say, it's an institutional problem. It's not individuals' fault. It's not the individual men's fault that they are losing these jobs to foreigners. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying it's an institutional problem because the people who are in schools, well, you know, they're typically women. And women are more focused on how you're teaching rather than what you're teaching. They're more focused on the tone that you're using and the kind of language that you're using over the actual content of the education. You know, schools are tailored towards women. Men and women in this country are kind of, well, boys and girls in this country and in the States are thrown into school at the same age, which isn't fair from the beginning, because if you're going to look at the ideal time for a child to start learning the school system, girls go in right at the prime time, but yet boys shouldn't be going in for another year or two after girls. So the whole thing is kind of waged against boys from the offset. This is what I'm saying. Women have an absolute head start. So, you know, there's so much to it, because when you look at it on the level of companies and billionaires and all of this, it's like, okay, well, you have to put yourself in everyone's shoes. And yes, it's infuriating to lose your job to, you know, a foreigner who's going to do it for less money. But then if you look at it from the billionaire's perspective, it's like, well, of course, like, it just makes sense. So it's like, well, how do you fix that? It's not as simple as just mandating these billionaires, you know, you've got to stay within your nation, because, well, okay, the companies from their perspective are losing more money. That doesn't exactly promote capitalism, does it? It doesn't exactly promote freedom for a business to operate how it chooses to. And then also from the position of the people, well, you're not mandating anything on the individuals to actually work harder in order to be able to compete internationally. So, you know, it's just, that's not the solution. If you're going to provide an actual solution, you need to go right down to the roots and figure out, where is this problem even coming from? How is this problem occurring in the first place? And the problem is that you can get people from abroad to do the job for cheaper and to a higher standard. And why is it that they can do it to a higher standard? Because their school systems perhaps aren't completely skewed against them, because they have this desperation where they want to get a job in America because the money that they're making is much more. So it's like, there's things you can do to change that. If you can get the American worker, you know, from a boy to have a higher quality, then of course billionaires are going to be prepared to pay people more if the quality of the work is greater. But all you've got to do, like I say, is look at the schooling system, look at the kids over here in the West versus kids from these other countries, and you will see there is a clear educational problem. I don't think it's just because of, you know, obviously the gender difference. I think it's a huge factor, but I'm well aware that it's probably not the full reason. I don't know the full reason, so I'm not going to claim to, but I'm just saying it's not as simple as people getting annoyed that, you know, foreigners are taking their jobs, because when you try and put yourself in the shoes of the person running that business, it's like, well, it logically makes sense. If you take politics and feelings out of it and you just look at it as a business decision, it makes sense why companies operate that way. So if you want to fix it, provide a better solution.
Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy tried to chalk this up to these immigrants just simply being the best and the brightest. Yeah, okay. You're paying them less for longer hours and more work, and they're willing to deal with it in order to stay in the country. It's coercive, exploitative, and, dare I say, not very America first.
It's not very America first whatsoever, but I don't know if I would argue it's exploitative, because these people do want to be in the country. So if that's what they're willing to do to stay here, then everyone knows what they're getting into. It's a consensual thing. I don't know if I'm being ignorant here, but that's my feeling on it.
Conservatives confronted Elon Musk for this last year. He told somebody, and I quote, "Take a big step back and yourself in the face. I will go to war on this issue, the likes of which you cannot possibly comprehend."
The reason I'm in America with so many critical people who built SpaceX, Tesla, and hundreds of other companies that made America strong is because of H-1B. I take it that's like the foreigners form or whatever that they have to sign in order to come to the US.
So when it comes to replacing American workers in manual labor with cheap foreign labor, it's deport, deport, deport. But when it comes to replacing his American workers with cheap foreign labor, it's f*** yourself in the face. Interesting. There's also affirmative action and DEI, which are other things Fox News always pisses and shits about. But suddenly, when the conversation is about Gen Z men, the demographic of people who are victims of these things, suddenly these things just like don't exist anymore. Then it's
And I completely agree that the men in this scenario are the victims of it, and it's not the men's responsibility to fix it. But this is the position that we found ourselves in. Again, you know, we can talk for hours about how we think it should be and how, you know, these decisions shouldn't have been made in the first place, but we are where we are. So it's like, what change can we make now so that the next generations aren't in this same boat? Please let me know in the comments what you would propose. But for me, logically, the only thing I can think of right now is reforming the educational systems to make the American candidates more up there on the radar when it comes to, you know, value of workers, not just on the basis that they're born in America. Because at the end of the day, if you do have this H-1B thing and you are open to international workers, when it comes to who's going to get the job, the only real way to actually tackle that is to make sure that the American worker offers more value than the international one. And how do you do that? I would argue you go back to the institutions. Because I'm still on this point. If you look at the stats today and you look at the kids over here and in America versus the rest of the world, versus these kids coming from India and other parts of Asia, why is it that we're so much dumber? Why is it that our kids are so much dumber? There's something going wrong there. So, of course, like if I ran a big international company and I am just out to make money, you know, politics aside, all of that, feelings, you know, stay out of it. And I'm thinking, like, on the one hand, I would love to hire someone from my own country and, you know, promote my country. But at the end of the day, if I'm out just to make money and I've got someone, you know, who's going to do it for less, like, it just makes sense. I'm not trying to discredit or be ignorant to just how tough it is right now. But I'm also trying to acknowledge that this is where we are and it doesn't look like it's going to change. So what do we propose can be changed? And yeah, if everyone else in the world is 2 steps ahead from that young age and women are 10 steps ahead and the men are getting left behind, it's like, okay, how do we bring the men back up to the table? I mean, you could bring manual labor jobs back, but again, I don't see that happening, because why would they do that when you're going to have to pay American men, rightly so, but you're going to have to pay American men much more than you would abroad. It's just time isn't going to go backwards. It's not going to change, unfortunately. And I'm so sorry it's that way. Like, believe me, if I could flick a switch and I could make it go that way, I would. But we have to stay realistic here. We have to look at what is.
Oh, young men are all just lazy. They just want to be in their parents' basement, ordering DoorDash and playing video games. But it's not just the brown people taking your jobs. I am not beating the allegations with this one. The brown people are not taking your jobs, okay? It's not their fault. They're just cheaper. Aim upwards. But it's not just the brown people taking your jobs. It's the women, too. Mm-hmm. Many of the dying industries are male-dominated, while many of the growing industries are female-dominated. Yep. And stigma around these jobs...
And again, it's because of that educational system, the institutions. Just go and read Rachel Wilson's book, Occult Feminism, and she dissects this really, really well. Everything. Society is built for women. The jobs are for women. You know, tertiary sector jobs have boomed since, you know, I think it was like post-60s or 70s. And, you know, secondary and primary jobs are just on the decline. And they're making it harder and harder, especially here in the UK, for primary jobs to exist. Primary jobs are obviously like, you know, farmers and people like that. You know, the tax implications and stuff that's coming with all of that now, I refuse to believe that it's just as simple as, you know, British people want this. We have this kind of narrative over here that the reason we're getting rid of those primary and secondary jobs and moving them abroad is because it's cheaper, and that British people want to do tertiary sector jobs. I used to believe that, obviously, because I'm a woman and I'm thinking about it from the perspective of, if I could pick to do any job in the world, sure, I'd much rather sit at a desk in front of a computer than, work on an oil rig. But now I'm a bit older and, I've been in this side of the internet a while. I refuse to believe it's as simple as that. I genuinely believe that it is part of fifth, sixth, whatever wave feminism that we're in now, and it is part of the agenda to dismantle men as a group and to completely destroy masculinity. I don't think it's a coincidence that since primary and secondary sector jobs have declined, that testosterone has also declined, because I don't think most men want to do tertiary sector jobs. I don't. I think most men want to do hands-on jobs. Let me know in the comments if you agree with that. Obviously, I'm not a guy. I can only speak from, my female lens, but I don't think it's as simple as tertiary sector jobs are growing because British people would rather do that. I don't think that's true. I don't think most men would rather just sit at an office all day. I can't get behind that thinking. I think it's that they don't want men to have a place in society anymore. So how do you do that? You get rid of all the men's jobs.
Woman jobs usually stops men from working them. Women are overwhelmingly entering and excelling in college and the workforce, and they're more flexible about job position and pay, while young men usually hold out for higher paying, higher position jobs that will make them the breadwinner.
Honestly, we're living in Betty Friedman's wet dream.
Because you see, despite the world progressing and the role of women changing, the role of men has not changed. Every woman is a feminist until the dinner bill comes. But what's crazy is, women might be the ones paying that dinner bill soon. A study from the UK found women aged 22 to 29 earned about $1,000 more annually than men.
Wow. This sounds similar to the research that I came across, the 10% one. This is what I'm saying. At the end of the day, you can't overtake men in the political social landscape and then demand that men find a way to overtake you again, when the whole point of feminism was that you wanted to overtake men. So you've got what you wanted. You've got the control. You've become the men you always wanted to be. So now act like it. Because you cannot and should not expect a man to pay to be the man when you've worked so hard and fought so hard to become one yourself. It doesn't make any sense. So if these women actually want relationships with men, if we look at where we are now, the reality of the situation, this is it. Women have become the men. The only way to build a bridge is to understand that and recognize you cannot and should not expect a man to take the majority of the financial load if you are the one with the majority of the financial income. It doesn't make any sense. I think a modern relationship in 2025, if you've got a woman who earns significantly more than the man, and whatever intersexual dynamics are going on there, if you guys can find a way for that to work, if the power dynamic can still be that of a healthy one, I would say put all the money in the same pot and forget about it. Never bring it up who earns more or anything like that. Money's in the same pot. I would say that you put the man in charge of that money, but that's just what I think. I think men are better decision makers when it comes to money. But if you can't do that, if you are insistent on having separate money, then when it comes to the financial responsibilities, add together your incomes. Let's say the woman earns, I'm so bad at math, this is going to go really, really badly. Let's say the woman earns 100k a year, right? And let's say the man earns 50k a year. Okay, you add that up. The woman makes up 2/3 of that income, right? Please tell me my math is correct. The woman makes up 2/3 of that income. So therefore, she should pay 2/3 of everything. If you are going to insist on this kind of split, then do it fairly. I thought feminism was about equality and fairness, so surely this should be what you want, no? So the whole thing is a mess.
completely reversing the traditional gender pay gap for this age group. In the US, a 2022 Pew Research Center analysis showed that women under 30 out-earned men in many metropolitan areas, with median earnings at or above 100% of men's, in cities like New York and Washington, D.C. That may not sound like a lot of money now, but it's a growing trend that has never been seen before. It's so bad that it's really starting to affect the dating world. American women have never been this resigned to staying single. They are responding to major demographic shifts, including huge and growing gender gaps in economic and educational attainment, political affiliation, and beliefs about what family.
Congratulations, you played yourself.
Women did this to themselves. This is what they wanted, and now they're not happy with it.
Should look like. More women than men are attending college, buying houses, and focusing on their friendships and careers over dating and marriage. The challenges of finding a romantic partner have been made more complicated by a growing divide in education and career prospects between men and women. In 2024, 40% of American women ages 25 to 34 had a bachelor's degree, according to Pew, compared to 37% of men. A bachelor's degree increases net lifetime earnings by an estimated $1 million. Women are doing comparatively well when it comes to education in their early years in the labor force, and men are doing comparatively badly. Men's economic struggles seem to be having the biggest effect on women.
Always about the women, isn't it?
Without a college degree, whose marriage rates by 45 have plummeted to 52% for those born between 1930 and 1980, according to research by Cornell University. Young men without a degree are struggling so much as a group that there simply aren't enough with steady jobs and earnings for non-college women to date.
You can't begin to believe the ignorance of this article, can you?
Men are poor, women most affected.
Honestly.
Modern women are no longer tied to their gender role. Birth control has freed them from the prison that is their biology, and they are making their own money, sometimes more than men. They can have it all. They can do anything. They can be anything. While at the same time, men are still expected to be the provider. And more importantly, many men still want to be the provider, but they can't. And women, though strong and independent, still want men to be the provider.
And as a woman, I want a strong man who is a protector and a provider that will go to war if need be, that will protect me, protect my family, make money.
Basically, the ignorance is just absolutely infuriating.
Men are like, we're worried we're not making enough money. And women are like, we're worried men are not making enough money. Hello class, I am Miss On Head. I am substituting for your teacher today. She was arrested for molesting a 12-year-old boy. So today we are learning about the graph. This is the growth in productivity versus hourly compensation graph. And you can trace almost everything bad happening in society.
Wow. I've not seen that graph before. That is, wow.
Back to this graph. As you can see, productivity increased while compensation barely grew over the same time period. Notice they tracked very closely up until around 1972. Now, what happened around 1972, class? Well, the top marginal tax rate was reduced from 70% in 1964 to 50% by 1981. The federal...
What is that?
Minimum wage began to stagnate. Income going to the 1% rose from 9% in the 60s to 16% in 2023. CEOs also went from making 20 times more than the average worker to making 350 times more than the average worker. Anything else? Anything else happen around 1972? Yes, Jimmy, that is correct. Women joined the workforce around this time, but...
You know, sometimes I get a little ignorant myself and I think, you know what, I can't be red-pilled more. There it is. Wow.
Don't have to get into that today. The fact is, hard work no longer guarantees success, and the will to work is tied to the fruits of your labor. And young men are fed up today because 90% of that fruit is rotten. Now, is there some truth to modern young people being lazy? Sure, I guess. Every generation had lazy people. And we do basically live in late-stage mouse utopia, after all. Young people today are faced with two options: revolution or escapism. And a lot of them are choosing escapism.
That's a really interesting point. That's a really interesting point. I mean, I don't think it's as simple as those two options, but I can completely understand what she's saying. Those are the two easiest options, I guess. I mean, there is obviously another option. which is the come up with something new or deal with what you've got. Like, there are still ways to make money. I mean, for example, the examples that we saw at the beginning of the video, you know, as much as I disagree with the guy, people like Destiny, you know, they're not having to work to become particularly masculine or anything, but yet he still gets girls, albeit not effectively and bad ones, but he still gets girls, and the guy's obviously rich. So it's like, in the modern era, there are ways to make money, and lazier ways. I mean, look at me right now. I'm just sat in a chair talking. But I understand the sentiment of what she's saying, but I don't think that those are the two only options. There are still ways to make money in the modern era. And I don't think it's as black and white as completely disappear out of society into like escapism versus, you know, protest in the streets and set a light to government. I do think that there is a third option where you can just come up with something else. But I'm not taking away from the fact that it's incredibly hard. It's incredibly hard, and not everyone's going to be able to do that. So out of the two, I am much more for the revolution side. However, how's that going to happen? Women have all the power. What's going to happen if men take the streets and have a revolution? They're all just going to get thrown in prison. Everyone's just going to get thrown in prison. Nothing's going to happen. Men don't have power. There needs to be social change. There needs to be cultural change. And that needs to begin with men and women building bridges instead of burning them down. And the only way that that can happen in the current climate where we are right now is by women holding out their hands and allowing men back into the sphere, so to speak, because it's the men that have been pushed out. And it's only if we can fix it on a personal level, individual relationships, that we can stop this kind of tribal men versus women, left versus right whole thing. That's what I think. It's probably not as simple as that, but I think it'd be a good start.
They have basically given up, but it's not like they didn't try. They tried, and they found out the juice just isn't worth the squeeze, whether it's college, dating, or the job market. And in a way, many young men are kind of choosing revolution. The never-before-seen large shift rightward in young men is a small revolution in a way. They're saying, this isn't working for me, this sucks, I hate this, I want something different. This is also manifesting on the Democrat side in general. The young men that are still voting left are voting further left. You saw this recently in New York City, where Zohran Mamdani, a self-proclaimed Democratic socialist, won the Democratic primary. Young men are tired of the establishment, left and right. They're tired of the system, and they want to burn it down and start again. They want something that works for them because
men need to take back the power. Men need to take back the power. I wish I could see a way for that.
This is not working for them.
And the thing is that I'm not even egalitarian in the way that I think. I don't know. Obviously, I don't know she personally, but from what I've seen of how she talks, I think she's quite moderate. I don't think she's particularly left or right. She seems quite in the middle. I would argue that I am much more right. I don't believe that you can have a way where everyone's equal all the time. I don't think that nature is equitable. I don't think that nature is fair. I think power in everything is in hierarchies, and there can only be one or a small group of people at the top. So I think at the end of the day, if it comes down to that and we have to pick right who's going to be in power, because I personally don't believe there is a way for it to be fair. I don't think that works. I don't think it's ever worked. I don't think it will ever work. I could be wrong, but it's just not my worldview. You're free to have your own. I'm not saying my worldview is the right one. This is just from what I see and what I think in my 24 years here. It might change. But if I have to pick between the men having the power or the women have the power, I will pick the men every single goddamn time. So I absolutely believe that the men need to have a revolution and take back the power, because the power, I think, is only one can have it. And I'd much prefer the men to have it.
If you wake up one morning and you find yourself in a society where 23-year-olds with 4-year college degrees and like initiative who aren't smoking weed every day, if they can't make enough to buy a car, much less a home, much less get married, much less have children, then why should you be surprised when half of them say they prefer socialism?
Fox News should hire that guy. There is an entire generation of fighting-aged men who are enraged and feel like they have nothing to live for. you should probably start caring.
Yeah.
When they saw this airing on Fox News, they saw an angry woman nagging in their faces about how everything wrong in the world is their fault. An all too familiar thing they have been hearing for far too long. But unfortunately for Democrats, nobody under the age of 60 watches Fox News, so this is not really going to have an effect on young men whatsoever. So keep that $20 million. You might still need it, unless we get dragged into another war in the Middle East. If we do get dragged into another war in the Middle East, young men might come running back to the Democratic Party. Maybe not even a George Bush II electric boogaloo will have men coming back to the Democratic Party. Hopefully we don't find out. And as I'm editing this right now, a lot of young people, even the podcast bros, seem pretty upset about the Epstein thing, but we know Democrats won't take advantage of the situation in order to protect the Clintons, so maybe not even this will save them, but we'll see, I guess. Hold on one second. That's better. So that was that video. What do you think of the male loser epidemic? Do you agree with Tommy Lauren? Is it all men's fault? Leave your comments below. I read them all. I am probably reading them right now as you type them. Wait, don't write that. No, you can't say that. No, it doesn't matter if it's with an A.
That was brilliant. That was brilliant. We love Shoe on Head over here. Definitely go check her out if you haven't, which I know most of you have, but you know. Gotta support where the support is due. Yeah, I asked a lot of questions from you guys with regards to my thoughts, which were obviously a lot messier than that video, but I think the whole thing is a mess. I think that at the end of the day, we can talk about what's going on in the political sphere. We can talk about what's going on at these, you know, billionaire levels. We can talk about what's going on with the tax and all of this. But I really try to keep my feet on the ground. I like to go off into the clouds every now and then, but I like to try and keep my feet on the ground and focus on what's actually in front of me, what I can change, what I can't change. Realistically, for most people in 2025, here's what you can't change. The political landscape. Realistically, if you are passionate enough to go for that and want to try, go for it. If you're a normal person, realistically, you're not going to change it. You're not going to change the tax brackets. You're definitely not going to change the mindset of a billionaire. So what can you change? You can change your day-to-day attitude. You can change how you approach the opposite gender. You can change your accountability for your life. You can have a bit of self-awareness, especially if you're a woman. Instead of shitting on men for not being where you are, you could realize, why are you where you are? How did you get where you are? Why aren't men where you are? And hopefully you will come to realize that actually you didn't try any harder than a man. You were given a massive boost. And if you can have a little humility like that, if you can strive towards building bridges, not burning them down, then maybe at an individual level, it will eventually, hopefully, reach some kind of broader surface level. And then we can start talking about these big things. Until then, I think it's just on everyone individually to do what you can. Because I don't see how anything else is going to change. Even revolution. Let's say everyone went out into the streets right now and protested and started burning stuff down and turned into savages and tried to break into the Houses of Parliament and hold the politicians hostage and held the billionaires at gunpoint. Like, realistically, that's not going to happen. Before it even happens, those billionaires and governments are all going to go into hiding in bunkers and they're going to live a lavish lifestyle like they always have, and we're just going to end up killing each other. Realistically. So, let's keep our feet on the ground. Let's try and stay balanced, fair, and yeah, realistically, we're all each other's got. Forget about these people, these distant people far away. They're not making changes. They don't care. They don't care about us. So it's up to us to care about each other. And that's what this channel is about, is trying to build some kind of bridge. Trying my best. We'll see what happens. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. This was a long video. Thank you so much for sticking around if you did. As always, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up on your way out. Be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to stay up to date with all of my content. If you have a video that you think I should react to, you can send it over to me via my email. And if you'd like to consider donating to the channel, you can become a member right here on YouTube, or you can send me a donation via buymeacoffee.com. I really appreciate all of your support. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'll see you very soon in the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.